Hey, this is Mark Washington from MTC Media. So, reports this morning on Saturdays that the NBA and the NBPA have reached an agreement in principle to extend the current collective bargaining agreement. So, it looks like, according to a lot of outlets, but right now we're at ESPN, that it's going to be a 7-year deal. Now, the NBA and the Players Association had to extend this deadline twice to get here. There were certain things that the certainly the NBA governors wanted, and it seems to me that it was just a situation of, okay, this is what we want. What can we live with in exchange to what we want? And in this case, what the NBA wanted was a second line on the salary cap, on the luxury tax, and then some new parameters if you get to that second line. So, you can take a look at this as, even though two teams that are impacted by the rule change would have been Golden State Warriors and the LA Clippers, really, it's the Golden State Warriors rule. And according to ESPN, how it's going to be is the NBA is implementing a second salary cap apron at $17.5 million above the tax line. Those teams will no longer have access to the taxpayer mid-level in free agency. So what you're going to lose is that mechanism if you're over the second threshold. And for ESPN lists four guys that would have impacted Golden State's Dante DiVincenzo, Milwaukee's Joe Ingles, Boston's Danilo Gallinari, and the Clippers with John Wall. And you might say, well, what difference does that make to those teams? I would say that in both Milwaukee and Golden State's case is a big difference. You could have argued it was a big difference in Boston had Gallinari not gotten hurt. Wall was kind of the outlier here. So, that was one of the big things. The second big thing, and I didn't think that the Players Association really pushed back a lot on this, was the whole minimum games thing. If you want to be eligible for awards and it's at 65 games, which still allows for organizations to build in rest days for players, which I have no problems with, simply because in today's basketball, NBA basketball, anyone with an elongated schedule, you're going to have that. It's in Major League Baseball. Obviously, in baseball, it's a lot with pitchers, inning counts, pitch counts and stuff. Much more stringent, much more calculated, much more scientific based than it was in the 80s when they had pitchers throwing until their arms fell off. So I have no problems with the scheduled rest days. I think it's one of the most overblown things that the media holds on to and clutches their pearls over. 65 to me is reasonable. Most players are going to make 65. That is of that ilk. They're going to be eligible for those awards anyway. One of the big things that the players scored was there's an increase in the extensions. So it goes from 120% increase over your current deal to 140% increase over your current deal. The example that ESPN.com gave is Jaylen Brown. At 120% on a 4-year extension, it's worth $165 million a year. At 140% on that same extension, now we're looking at $189 million a year. So that's obviously an extra $24 million. So for the players, hey, you're getting something in return. It's the same thing for Sabonis out there in the Kings. He also stands to benefit from this. And then probably one of the little things that for someone like me, it's not a little thing. For a lot of people, it is. There is going to be another two-way contract that will be added that players and teams can use. And I think that is huge. I think it's huge for the NBA G League and its viability. The NBA G League has been so good to the NBA. I don't think a lot of people notice how good it's been. Toronto Raptors have lived off of their G League team. That's how good that's been. So I think that is good for the league. And also the mid-season tournament, blah, blah, blah. Players will get, I think, $500,000 per player or something like that if you win it. I really want to see how that is structured once the deal is actually finalized and some parameters are put in. Really before commenting on that. But if you're an NBA fan, and certainly I am, this was good news this morning. I thought the players once again had to give. They had to give, but this has been the last probably 6 or 7 CBA agreements they've had to give back. I don't think that people understand that back in the 80s, 90s, players were getting 57% of basketball related income. The players, for as much as we talk about player empowerment, which is a load of garbage, the players are now down in the low 40s. Every CBA, the players have given back money. So think about that before you, player empowerment. It's not player empowerment. What is it, player empowerment when you're giving back money? Get out of here. But it's great for the NBA to come up with a deal. We'll see how that mid-season tournament works. I hope it's not something that's hokey. But the rest is probably good for the league. So good for both sides at getting this done. This is Marks Washington, MTC Media.